Sarvopanishado gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Partho Vasta Sudhir Bhokta Duktam Gitamritam Mat Vasude Vasutam Devam Kamsa Charnuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Om Namo Narayanaya. So the first thing is to understand that Gita, unlike many texts, in other religions, such as the Bible in Christianity and the Quran for Islam, or the Guru Granth Sahib for Sikhs, Gita is not just a book that is only limited to the religious domain. So Gita is more of a book which is a practical handbook for a spiritual seeker. A lot of concepts that is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, you will see in many other texts, such as the Yoga Sutras, the Upanishads, and all that. So when we talk about Gita, we say that two main facets of it. One is the wisdom aspect. And for the wisdom aspect, the wisdom for Gita is based on the Upanishads. The texts of Upanishads are the basis for the wisdom aspect of Gita. And then there is a practice aspect, the practical application of the Gita. And that is where we say it is the yoga. There is a yoga aspect. And so this is commonly, said in the end of every chapter, Om Tat Saditi, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su, Brahma Vidyayam, and Yoga Shastre. So two things, Brahma Vidya, the highest knowledge, the knowledge of that supreme reality. Yoga Shastra, so just as how we say Yoga Sutras and all that, it is a scripture of yoga. So it is not just just another like a book for religion and all that. And it is, of course, it is used in the context of the what we call as Sanatana Dharma. In the context of Dharma comes out quite strongly. The word Dharma is one of the names which we use for the Supreme Being. The Dharma there is that word where the first shloka of Bhagavad Gita refers to that. It refers to Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakav Pandavas Cheva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. So when gathered in the battlefield, Dharma Kshetra, which is also called the field of Dharma. So Dharma, when we talk about it, sometimes we think Dharma is only that which is done in the yajna halls. Dharma is that which people are the do's and don'ts of religion. So here Dharma is a much more practical concept. So the Bhagavad Gita starts with this scenario. It is part of the whole historical background of Mahabharata war. So gathered there are two forces, the forces of Pandavas and the forces of Kauravas. Kauravas, as we see later, are those who are in the 16th chapter of the Gita. It is actually qualified into those who are Asuras and those who are Devas, Devika, meaning those who are pure, who are uplifting, positive, sattvic tendencies based. And those Asuras are mostly tamasic tendency driven people. So this is the fight. Now, where is this Dharma Kshetra? We say literally Kurukshetra, it is said as the field of battle in India, Kurukshetra, the location. But Dharma Kshetra is more relevant. So Dharma Kshetra is not just a place somewhere like Kurukshetra. Dharma Kshetra is that point of, it's that field. Kshetra is field. And where is this field? It is this field of our own body and mind. Our own body and our own antakarana. All the facets of our mind. So this is where the battle of Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra happens, And now, some of the essential points of Gita, which, it's no matter how many times we hear, it's good to reflect on that. And especially now that we are coming to this aspect of Gita Jayanti. So Gita has such, there are two aspects of Gita. The one is that it is a teaching given by Lord Krishna, we say. The teachings was given by Lord Krishna to his disciple or his friend, close friend, who at that point in the war is despondent and says that I am your disciple. So teach me, tell me the right way. What is the truth? What is the right way to live? The right way to action. At that point, they say that the Gita that the Lord gave out, meaning it is not like something that the Lord said that, okay, now I will give out that Gita. So the Gita, they say, came out. It poured out like a river. That Gita poured out. So Gita is like a poem. It just poured out of the Lord's mouth. So this is that force, that energy, just like how a river flows, uninterruptedly. This is that flow of Gita. It just came out. And so we worship this form of Gita itself, and this is why Gita, we, in a normal perspective, we don't consider Gita just like another book. It is not just like another book written by, it is a best-selling book, so we are studying it. No, it's not like that. Gita has a certain energy by itself. It has a certain moment by itself. And that energy has a certain cleansing effect on our mind, And so this is why we immerse in the study of Gita. And so this is what, there are three aspects of Gita. I won't go too much into that, but there is a Vakta, Varna, and Vachana. So these are like there's a speaker, and there is the words, the letters that is used, which is in Sanskrit in Gita. And then the words and the meaning of the words, So all of them have a certain effect, which is all leading to that same goal. That same one goal it leads us to. So this is the main aspect of Gita. The purpose of Gita is that all the purpose of that speaker, that words and the letters is meant to lead us to the highest wisdom, the highest knowledge. So what is the purpose of any of these scriptures? When we really look at any scriptures, what is the purpose? If you look at a best-selling book, of some author, it might be to give knowledge on some one aspect, or it might be to amuse us or give us some knowledge which we don't have. Here the texts are very clearly meant for one specific means. We might say like all books are meant to give us happiness, relieve us from some suffering. So that is true. So we pick up some book or we read something because we want to find some subtle happiness, some higher happiness, or be free from some sorrow, gain some knowledge. I mean, most of the useful self-help books, self-development books. But in Gita, it's a little different. It is true that these are the purposes, but how does this happen? The main purpose is it frees us from wrong knowledge. So we are immersed in this wrong knowledge about what is reality. And based on that wrong knowledge, we seek goals. Our pursuit of goals in life is based on the information I have. What I think will give me happiness is a limited understanding we have by just our intellectual deduction or what we have gathered from the world, So the Gita is uplifting us to a higher realm of wisdom, where we can function in a much more productive way. So Adi Shankaracharya says that the main thing that Gita has done, it has given one the clarity on life's purpose, the goals of life. So it is in that context, it is not just a religious book which tells us like where we came from, where we will go after death. It's not so much of that. Although those concepts are in a way covered within the context, but that is not the goal. The goal is to give us a clarity on our purpose, on how we can act in the world, and how we can balance our life's priorities of action and spiritual living. So it is not just about seeking like how in some yoga sutras and all, it's very clearly spiritual enlightenment. There is not much teaching about how you live in the world. Of course, it is embedded if you really understand in the context. But in Gita, it's much more clearer. It is put out very clearly. So dharma, I was coming back to the word dharma. The word dharma, if we take it as just righteousness, then Gita is not only limited to that context of dharma. So dharma and adharma, we say, if you really translate it, we take it as righteousness and wrong actions, or that which gives me merits and that which accumulates sin from a religious context. So from that context is where Arjuna starts off on the warfield. He comes to the warfield and he has to fight his relatives. They are related. The first question there, samaveta yuyutsavaha, samaveta. The warriors are related to each other. They come with that relation, samaveta, samavaya sambandha in the Nyaya language. This is the relation between them. So they come on that battlefield, they gather together, but they see that there is a stronger bond between them. So if you really look at it in your life, in our daily life, we are gathered with people, not with strangers, Our battle of life on a daily thing is with people who we know, we are related in some way. And there the dilemma comes. What do I say in words? What do I do in my physical action? What do I think of this person? Or how do I express my thoughts towards this person? So this relation is the cause of conflict. And at an outer level, this is the scenario of Gita. There on one side are gathered all those who are his relatives, cousins, grandparents, his teacher, meaning is the one who taught him archery and all that. And all of those whom he has revered at one time. And then he has a duty to uphold that all his brothers and all that, and his own wife, was humiliated. And there he stands to fight for them. And this conflict is the outer conflict. But the real conflict is an inner conflict. And this is the conflict all of us are facing. At every moment of our life, this Dharma Kshetra, this battle is going on in our own minds. Primarily in our own minds, but also in our own body. Every moment of our life, we are engaged in a battle. Battle at the level of body, battle at the level of what we choose to say verbally, what we choose to think. So this constant battle is that Dharma Kshetra, that field of Dharma, that action. So now Arjuna comes from this kind of a baggage, or rather this kind of an understanding that he has learned that the whole teachings of the religion-based Dharma, where he's saying that how can I kill my own relatives? How can I kill my own friends? How can I kill my teacher? How can I fight my teacher? And here is where the word Dharma changes from when we come to Bhagavad Gita. The real context of Dharma comes in a much more clear, specific clarity here. So here, Krishna's teachings begin. When Krishna's teachings begin, the nature of Dharma, he clarifies, where he clearly says that what you have to do, what is your duty in life. And that cannot be guided by a broad sense of right and wrong that is handed out to one person. And here is where we need to have this viveka, that discernment, that clear understanding of what is right, what is wrong in every situation. So what is dharma to one person may be adharma to other person. What is right for one person may not be right for another person. And so this there is no kind of a moral kind of a rules we can lay down in, like as is done in many religions, And this is the true understanding of the Sanatana Dharma. The real eternal religion is that discernment between that what is right and wrong from that sense of eternal living, that what give what is eternal in us, that which leads to that highest happiness. So this context of Dharma is the setting on which the rest of the Gita unfolds. Now, coming back to the essence of Gita, in general, we would not have known that Gita is a text. Of course, many of the sages have talked about Gita. But the real essence of Gita, we owe it to Shankaracharya. Because he was one of the first teachers who wrote a commentary on the Gita. And that was rooted in a very profound insight in the nature of reality. And in that process of writing the commentary, he put the proper philosophical context. Otherwise, what happens, like the many aspects of Gita, it almost seems conflicting. In one place it is said something, one place it is said something else, How do you reconcile all this into one stream of clarity of thinking? Of course, then many later acharyas also came and they also developed on that in their own ways and their own perspective. And so today we have thousands of commentaries on Gitas. It is one of the, in terms of scripture, it is one of the books which has the most number of commentaries, written by different people from different perspectives. But the real this format of writing commentaries and understanding Gita in a broader sense came from Shankaracharya. And the idea is that all of us have to be able to translate it in our own life. And this is the main point of Gita. The main point of Gita is that it is not just a religious right and wrong that one person has to understand. The main thing of Gita is that we take the teachings of Gita, we put it in the context of our life, and we translate it into action. So that what is that highest knowledge, that wisdom of Gita, translates it first into our sphere of feelings and our sphere of all our inner patterns of life. And then what happens? It translates into our habitual actions, that changing of that samskaras. So that what is an intellectual thing translates into our heart and then it manifests into actions. So this is when the teachings of Gita is complete, So now coming back to some of the salient points, of Gita is that the Gita teachings in that context has been many famous personalities, have been really touched by it internationally, all over. We know of Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau, Carl Jung, then later Nikola Tesla, and Rudyard Kipling. In Rudyard Kipling, one of the famous poem, If, it's almost like putting the Gita in a very broad context, where he talks about that state of Sthita Prajna that Gita talks about. He says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. So this is the Sthita Prajna thing. Vitaraga Bayakrono, Dukkeshu Anutigno Manaha. So that is the, that context that is the Sthita Prajna stage, the state of a person who is equanimous. Dukkeshu Anudvigna Manaha, Sukeshu Vigataspraha, Vitaraga Bayakroda, Sthitadir Muniruchyate. So this is one of the things that Gita talks about quite highly, that state of equanimity, developing that's working towards that state, where we are not caught with life's problems. We're not, we don't get too excited about successes, nor are we too upset when something doesn't go our way. So here that Gita is where, it's a practical handbook. It is not just saying that, I will gain some miraculous powers and I will transform my life I will manifest all my desires and I will make sure nothing wrong happens to me. It's not like that. Gita is based on your mental state. How can you maintain that equanimous mental state? Whether you are praised by others or whether you're blamed, whether somebody comes and says you are that best person or somebody says you are the worst person, how do you maintain that mental state, that equanimity? So that is one of the important aspect that Gita comes again and again, that state of Shrita Prajna. And Samadhis Tasya Keshava. He's asking, how does one attain that state of Samadhi? And what is that Samadhi here? That Samadhi is that state of equanimity. It is not that Samadhi where one is immersed and lost, in a certain higher state of bliss. So this is why, again, Gita comes to this practical life. And there, one other thing that Gita is very well known for is this thing about action without seeking rewards. This is that famous sloka, karmanyevadikarastu, karmanyevadikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana, ma karma phala heturbo, mate sangotsva karmani. When you act, do not seek results, meaning do not be so keen on getting exactly what you are aspiring for. Act for the sake of action. And this is the heart of the karma siddhanta, the karma philosophy. See, what has happened in our life is, why do we get stressed? If you really look at it from a very practical point, why do we get stressed? We get stressed because we have certain expectations from our action. What we are doing, we feel should give us a specific result. And if we don't get that result, we are unhappy. And not just that, we also pile on the expectations of others upon us. So all this is a very clear case of leading us to stress. So now we might, and this is a very common question we ask, if you're not expecting, then what is the motivation to act? Because all of us are motivated from some desire, something we want to attain, like they say, many teachers too, their motivation is thousands of students, If that is the desire, then, you're always like looking for that kind of thing to become a teacher too. Or if you want to become like a famous musician also, then what happens, unless you are going to be a famous musician, you don't want to perfect that art of music. You will not perfect music for the sake of music. You're perfecting music because you want to be popular, So this is a common notion, but it is a wrong notion. How is this wrong? See, the motivation for that action which is propelled by desire is only subjective. It will not allow you to act for the sake of pure action. So now this is where, that seva bhavana comes in, that when we do seva, what is happening is, when you are serving somebody, serving without expecting any result, you decide that you will do something for somebody. Like this is the training we get in our ashrams and all that. So what is happening there is that you feel like, I'm not getting any money, I'm not getting anything, why should I serve? But slowly you start seeing that when you are serving for the sake of serving, you start getting a certain kind of, a different kind of energy that allows you to function without any kind of fear of failure. And this is the true service. The true action that we are doing is not based on the expectation of result. And taking that karma siddhanta, that which gives you result means that result will propel you to future action. So if I do something based on getting a result, and that result is actually a fuel for next action, when I get that result, I'll feel, okay, next time I have to get this better result, And so, in fact, when we were in our ashrams, of course, now, if somebody does something, I have to thank them and all that. But generally, when in our ashrams, our teachers never thanked us for whatever we did, Like whereas they would just do something and they wouldn't even, so we don't even know they're happy or not, many times. And the reason for that is, of course, they know that we can withstand that kind of training. The thing is that when we expect even that sense of thanks, then that also is a fuel for which our action is tailored in such a way. Of course, in a first level of our training, that kind of sattvic thing, we have to encourage people. So that is okay. But the real kind of service is that we are not really doing it even because of that. Action for the sake of action, that is fulfilling our responsibility. We have come into this world, and if you have family and all that, you work for that family, and that also you're not doing because your children will take care of you, they will do that for you. No, there also the action is that I have come in this role, this is what I do, or I'm an employee here and this is what I have to fulfill. You'll actually see that people will start trusting you a lot more. So this is a very practical way of karma yoga, the siddhanta of karma yoga. And next comes that aspect of what we call as that ability to work with our own mind. So here is where, like we talk today these days about how people are getting caught up in a lot of, addictions. People are caught up in different kind of problems of thing. And this is that path of Raja Yoga. The Raja Yoga, which is similar to that Yoga Sutras, is the training of that mind. We have to work with that mind. And there in Gita, the Arjunas, the Gita is not just like one teacher talking, right? Gita is a dialogue. It's a dialogue between the teacher and the student. So Arjuna doesn't hesitate to ask questions. Arjuna is very clearly, many times he says very clearly to this one, you're confusing me. This is one of the things. Vyamishreyena vakyena buddhim mohaya sivame. He's saying that your words are not clear. It's confusing me, because one time the Lord talks about the path of wisdom. One time he talks about the path of bhakti. In some places, Krishna says that one who is a bhakta, meaning a devotee, is much, much greater. And some places he says like knowledge is the highest path. In some places he says of all the people, the yogi, meaning the one who meditates, tasmat yogi bhavarjuna, tasmat yoga yukto bhavarjuna, become a yogi, Arjuna, he says, meaning become a one who is a Raja Yogi. So different context, and here is where we have to also understand at which stage we are in our spiritual journey. So there is also based on that. And yet at the same time, the yoga, the greatness about Bhagavad Gita, although some people say it is a text of devotion, the people who look from that perspective, they get that. People who look from the perspective of pure wisdom, they also get that. But really what it is saying is it is calling us to balance all these faculties. We have these faculties of feelings, we have these faculties of acting, we have these faculties of thinking, contemplating, and we also have this kind of a faculty of wanting to, this ability to control our mind. Like when our mind is depressed, we ourselves are the best refuge if we really have that right wisdom. Uddharet atman atmanam. Lift your mind from the self. The consciousness, that pure knowing, has this ability to lift our mind. So this is that hope that Gita gives us, that we ourselves, when we are equipped with the right knowledge, when we are tuned to the higher wisdom given to us by the teacher, and that wisdom has become our reality, we will never get depressed, we will never get despondent. And that is that state that Arjuna was caught in. He was despondent, and he said that based on the religious knowing of Dharma, I cannot kill these people. And this is where a lot of controversy has come, that Arjuna is telling him, no, you have to kill these people. So if you take it from a religious context, everybody says this is a blasphemy, like a book which is advising that he has to kill his relatives. But when we see it from a proper perspective, we have to understand what is the responsibility, what is the duty of Arjuna. The duty of Arjuna, he is a warrior. His role is to fight. If somebody is a soldier and he goes to the border and protect the country, and he says that my religion says I cannot kill. So then what happens? He is letting down all the people, all the country, So this is that Dharma, the redefinition, the proper perspective of Dharma that the Lord tells him. You have to have that maturity, that wisdom to not neglect your duties for the sake of spirituality. That balancing that spirituality based on that thoughts, actions, feelings, and that control of the mind, So all this integrated, so this is that integration of all faculties within us, that feeling, thinking, and all that things in us. And every man has that, every woman has that. So whether we are a man or a woman, we have that reason aspect, we have that feeling aspect. We have to learn to channelize them and work together, And that is that real fast way of spiritual progress. It doesn't mean that somebody who is on the path of only wisdom, only devotion will not get there. They will also get there. But the faster way is to harmonize all our faculties. We don't have to suppress that. Like if sometimes you hear when people come on the path of pure wisdom, they say that, no, you don't need to do any worship. You don't need to do any puja, any devotional practice. Or some who are devotees, they say, don't think, don't allow your mind to get into any thinking. Also meditation and all that. Some paths are like that. Do not allow any thought to come. So this is the way how it will work, but it requires a lot of suppression. So the path of Gita is harmonizing the natural propensities. Instead of suppressing, you transmute it. You channel it in the right direction. So that is one of the fundamental points. And then there are other approaches here, like other than selfless. This one, there is also a path of developing some kind of a balance, as I mentioned, of material and spirituality. So it is meant for people who are in the world, who have responsibilities. So like, in one of the point, Arjuna says that I will leave all this and I will live on alms, meaning like how sannyasis, are supposed to live. Like you live on what people give you, whatever, how much our people give you. Based on that, sannyasis are supposed to live, So I will live like that. He says, no, that is not your role, because you have come on the path. You have come on the path of balancing this life. You have to balance the material and the spiritual, and yet you can attain that highest goal that all the sannyasis are engaged in. So this is the hope for all the people who have responsibilities in life. Rather than telling them that you give up everything and you come to the caves and mountains and everything, you find a way to balance your life, but not that you get sucked into material world completely. That doesn't mean like it is justified. Like many times people just say in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said fight, but that is true at that point. But real thing is that if you see the completed, it is also embedded with pearls of wisdom on how to control the mind, how to attain that state of samadhi, how to get that pure highest level of devotion, and how to get that highest wisdom. All that is also there. So this means the priority is that spiritual attainment, but using the life, the life of material life and responsibilities is the fuel. You use that fuel and you purify that. So the practical application, and it's again, as I mentioned, all of us have to introspect to see how does it apply for me. And this is the essence. How does Gita apply to me is a very specific question that we have to contemplate on. But for that, we have to understand the teachings first in the proper context. And every shloka, as we go through, when you go through or study with, ideally with somebody, then that clarity will start coming in. And then a couple of other points in there is also, using that sense of what we call as a being self-aware. How do we come to this the state of being self-aware? And this is also the path of the Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. How do we, how can we integrate the sense of not just fulfilling what is right for me, but also to bring in a certain sense of purity in all my actions, because we are driven by this. Our actions are driven by this instinctive impulses for most of us, or based on my desires or what I want to acquire in life, So this is where, even after listening to quite a few chapters, Arjuna asked this question. Ata kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi vashneya baladivat niyojitaha, meaning my habitual force, those unmanifest tendencies. This is that understanding of the karma siddhanta, right? Like all actions have left a seed of impression in me. So this is yoga psychology. The yoga psychology is that, normal psychology says that I see something, I act on that, and next time I see something, again I will act. And this is how they describe the psychology of habit loop. But the yoga psychology goes further. It says that why is it that something attracts to me and why doesn't it attract somebody else? So there is that seed of impression that has been deposited in that unconscious mind, and that is that samskara. And baladivat niyojitaha, he says, by a force that is not in my control, it is pushing me towards it. Like you can see this if you are addicted to something, there is almost like a force that pulls you, like no matter how much wisdom, how much you have, it is like it grabs you and it takes you to that, right? Like that chocolate cake, smoking or whatever, you can't control it. Where is this coming from? There is no sign of cigarette, there is nothing you see, there is no sign of that food, but yet that thought in your mind, that subtle thought has come in the mind. And that has so much force. Baladivat, that force, you cannot stop that. And he's asking, you're given me all these nice things, but how do I practice it? And here is where, Krishna says, like the thoughts that you have created by habits, you can undo that. How? One thought at a time. Kshane, he says, slowly and steadily, thought by thought, you take that battle. And this is where, that the training of mindfulness, meditation and all that we do, you take a thought at a time. It's not like you have to work at it. Like in every meditation, the mind goes out, slowly you bring the mind back. Mind goes out, you bring the mind back. This scientifically, they are proven. The people who are meditating slowly and steadily, that every time they bring the mind back, they have strengthened that control of that mind. They are in more control of their habits then. So this is where that meditation, that essence of meditation also he gives there. So all these many facets of Gita, it comes out. And of course, the highest thing, again, the Lord comes back many times, is having the right knowledge. Because when we have that right knowledge, then all our actions are productive. When the knowledge is not correct, then all our actions, see, again, knowledge is like, it is not complete ignorance and knowledge. Every person, nobody feels they're in ignorance, and that itself is a sign of ignorance, when we feel that I'm not ignorant, I know everything, that itself, is a sign of that we haven't gained that highest wisdom. that highest wisdom is not just something that I have accumulated. That highest wisdom comes from this proper viveka, proper understanding. And the most important thing, and here is where there is a very important statement in the Gita. The Gita says, Shraddhavan labate jnanam, tatpara Shraddhavan labate jnanam, tatpara sanyatendriyaha. The one who has controlled the mind and the one who has a sense of inherent faith. So we might kind of say that how is that possible? Why? How is it that faith? Okay, control of mind, we can agree. How is it that Shraddhavan labate jnanam, the one who has faith will gain knowledge? So here again, faith is not just blind faith. Here faith is, we have to see, everyone we take knowledge from, we have some sense of faith from them, right? Whether it is a medical research, we believe that medical research because we have some faith in that, And so here, when somebody tells you, you don't really know, there is a higher knowledge than what you know. If we don't have that faith, we will stick to our knowledge, So that first sign of faith, which we start with that Guru and Shastras, that tradition of teachers, and that the higher spiritual scriptures. We start with some faith in that, because that is that opening. That is what will give us the opening for practicing, for contemplating, and for realizing that truth ourselves. And this is also the most important thing of Gita. The Gita is not just, it is giving you just like knowledge, that today, we get all this knowledge where at hand you get, right? From all the artificial intelligence, whatever you want, it's at the fingertips, And just that knowledge is not what Gita is giving us. Gita is giving us that direct transmission of knowledge, that pointer. And when it comes through the proper tradition of teachers, that knowledge will come into our heart. So here, knowledge is not just a brain activity. That knowledge enters into our heart when it comes from the right channel, the right source, and that when your heart is right enough for that. And so this is why, one of my favorite shlokas is that one that the Lord says in the 9th chapter. He says that, Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyamyana suyave. Jnanam vijnana sahitam yajñatva mokshase shubhat. I'm giving you not just the knowledge, I'm also giving along with that knowledge that realization of truth. Meaning, it is not just I am telling you that somewhere out there is a country called London, or somewhere out there is this place. That knowledge is going to become your knowledge, Meaning you yourself go and see that place, then you say, okay, now I believe there is this London. So then it becomes your knowledge, right? So that ability to transmit that knowledge and make that knowledge yours. And this is the biggest secret. He's saying, I'm giving you that secret of this. Why? Because you're not envious of me. Meaning, like, you're not like saying, oh, okay, this person knows more than me. You come to me in a form of a sense of willingness, a sense of submissiveness. You kind of are willing to accept that there is higher forms of knowledge, and I'm open and receptive to gain that knowledge. And he says this is the biggest secret, So, so then, in order to get that secret, we have to have that kind of that attitude that Arjuna had, that willingness. Okay. So this is Essence of Gita, and as I mentioned, the Gita Jayanti is on Saturday. So those of you who feel inclined, it's good to reflect on some of that teachings of Gita. And also a good way is actually to mentally kind of have that kind of intention to learn that teachings and to imbibe that teachings in our life, and to practice that. As Gita is considered a text where we came from Lord Krishna. So we always invoke his presence also. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyai Savaihi Vedai Sangya Padakramo Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yes Yantam Navidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Krishnarpanamastu.